Hey, what's going on YouTube, and welcome to this video on configuring the virtual appliances of GNS3 and Cisco VIRL in ESXi 6.0. Now, just to get our bearings, this is a continuation of a previous video I posted a few weeks on how to set up ESXi 6.0 or 6.x for home lab use from scratch for Cisco VIRL, GNS3, etc. And last week when I tried to record this video, I ended up finding there was an issue with the physical server. So even though the VIRL installation from before is functional now, I wasn't able to get GNS3 installed on that. So this is attempt number 3, and I've got a new server that we'll be using. And so just as a review, if you want to see it installed 100% from scratch, check out the other video. Otherwise, we're just going to pick up here where we have a baseline install, and I'm just going to do some basic configurations to prep it, and then we're going to go ahead and install GNS3, get it all configured for topology use, and integrate it with a real network environment just like we did with VIRL, so we can have some cross-platform interconnections. So to begin, again, we have our VIRL topology, and we went through, let's see, I don't want console. We went on our configuration under networking. We had set up these different interfaces, and we're using one NIC card. So instead of having everything all on this server, I'm essentially going to do the same thing to this one. So first, let's take a look at the switch that it's plugged into. So I'll bring up the switch here. And we'll log in. And this is on port 22. So currently right now we can see it set up as a access port, just a regular switch port. But what we're going to want to do is actually make this a trunk port. So we'll go in here to the interface, and as you can see here, this was my Study Lab 1 and this one is Study Lab 2. So I can just give it a description of Study Lab 2 server, something like that. And then switch port mode trunk. Apparently, so the 3750, apparently it supports ISL. Most new switches don't have that at all. So in this case, we have to specifically tell it to use .1q for trunking. So we'll say switch port trunk encapsulation .1q. And now we can say switch port mode trunk. And I'm going to say spanning tree port fast trunk. And if we wanted to, we can also restrict the VLANs that we're going to be using. So if we do show VLAN, for sure we're going to use VLAN 200, 201, and it's using 1 right now for the management. So we could say switch port trunk allowed VLAN 1, 200, and 201. Might help if we type in VLAN. All right. So I think that's all. So the only other thing I'm going to do here is, since we're going to be using the layer 2 IOU image, which emulates a layer 2 switch, well, layer 3 switch technically, multi-layer switch. Sometimes there's issues if it sees BPDUs. So I am going to put in here spanning tree BPDU filter enable to prevent some of the issues with that. So that looks, so now I believe we have everything that we need from the switch foundation level. So now we'll just go in here and go to our configuration. One thing I didn't do in the previous video that I thought maybe would be good to add is to set the time configurations, because one thing that can be kind of annoying is, even though when you boot up your hosts and you can set up MTP and all that, when you initially boot it, a lot of times it will pull the date and time from here. So it's not a bad idea just to go ahead and set up your NTP and date and time on here ahead of time, just so that whenever you boot up or add a new image, it's going to have the right date and time right when it boots up. So I'm going to say start date and time with host, and NTP settings, I'm just going to add a NTP server here. And we'll say OK. And it's actually 12. $36. Okay, so now that we have our time configured, we'll go back over to our networking and go to properties. And in this case, we're just going to be adding the additional VLANs for the virtual switch. So again, as a reminder from the previous video, we were talking about this is a virtual switch, and we can add additional virtual switches and use other interfaces or make it silos. But in this case, we're just going to use this one. And I'm going to choose add. And then the first one, we'll say this is going to be the flat network, which was VLAN 200. And we're going to add another one, flat 1, and that was VLAN 201. All right, and we close that, so now we have our network interfaces. Now we're ready to go. Now before I add GNS3, let's just check to make sure that VIRL is still up and ready to go. And that was, is it 204? Yeah, didn't change. All right, so here we have our VIRL server. And what I've already done when I tried to make this video last week is I downloaded the VM Maestro so that when we load it, you have a desktop icon. Let's see if I can make this smaller. And so when you load it here, you can see down here it's doing a server information check. And actually, come to think of it, because I recorded this video last week and ended up scrapping it because of all the technical issues with my server. One thing that I did do is when you first load this is go to preferences and node subtypes and choose this fetch. Oops, it's off the screen here. Go down and choose this fetch from server, and then this will pull down all the stuff you need. And as you can see here, when you click on this guest icon, you want to make sure all these are green for when you get this set up. And it's in simulation mode right now. So I'm going to just click over here on design, and then this is where we can actually start building our topologies. Again, this was from the previous video that never actually came to be. So I'll redo this here in a little bit, and we will get more into that. So first, let's get the foundation for GNS3. And now that we're back on the server, and we have our network interfaces configured, I'm going to say File and Deploy OVF Template. And browse, and we'll go to my downloads. Now in the previous recording last week that ended up scrapping, I tried downloading both versions just to see if there'd be a difference, and there wasn't. Since currently the Freelab beta for GNS3 is on 1.5.2, I'll go ahead and install this one, because then I can show you, for those of you that are following along, you're going to see how to do this on your home, or if you don't have the resources, I'm going to show you how you can easily integrate this then with the Freelab beta if you just want to play around with it. So we're going to click on this and click on the GNS3 OVA template, and we're going to choose next and next again, and we can just call this GNS3. This format, we'll use thick provisioning, and for the main host, I'm just going to keep this on the standard VM network, which has DHCP on it. And finish. Now, before this is going to upload, And while that's doing that, if you go over to GNS3.com, obviously this is where you download it, and 153 is the current. And what I did was I went to, when you click on download, choose this, download the GNS3 VM. And you can choose the VMware ESXi. Oh, it actually just threw it into my download queue. So that's new. Usually it would take you straight to GitHub and then you would download it. So this, they must have added this within the last week, since last week. So that's kind of cool. Makes it easier. So yeah, pretty straightforward and simple there. And then also on initially when I set up the Freelab beta and I was talking about I couldn't get the IOS-XRv working, but it worked on 144. I found that is because they have these appliances. If you go to the marketplace here, click on appliances, this is going to have all the stuff that you need. And essentially you just manually install it now. I haven't done it yet, but we'll do it here to see how well that works. All right, so now that the GNS is complete, the OVA has been deployed. I'm actually going to do a few edits first. First thing I'm going to do is edit the network interfaces because we want to add a couple of more now. And we'll call these, let's see. Yeah, so we're going to make these E1000s. And first one's going to be flat. And the second one is going to be flat 1. All right, so these are set to be connected at power on, all good there. And then we can also increase our CPUs and memory to whatever you want, or whatever your system can support. And if you need to do hardware reservations, so instead of being dynamic and get the guaranteed CPU or memory, this is where you do that under resources. But I'm just going to leave it as first come first serve, and we'll hit OK. Now we're not done just yet, because watch what happens when we try to open or run this as is. If we hit the play button, see right here, KVM support available false. That's not good, because you definitely need that, and it's going to ask you to disable it because it's saying QEMU VM will crash. You want to disable and get lower performance. I'm going to say no for now and shut down the VM, because we'll fix that here. All right, so now that that's shut down, we'll need to manually edit this, and to do that, we are going to go back over to our main ESXi configuration and choose security profile, and under services, we are going to temporarily enable SSH. So I'll hit start. Now I will open a PuTTY session if I can find it. Here we go. And we are just going to SSH to the IP address, 10.10.10.11 in this case. So yes, and log in with your administrative credentials in its root. All right, and hopefully, let's see, let me see if I can make it bigger for you guys. Hopefully between this and some post-zooming, post-editing, you can see this. But you can see here we've got our file system, so we want to change directory to the VM FS, not devices, volumes, and then data store. And you can see we have our GNS3 directory, so switch there, and here's our GNS3 files. And we are going to edit use VI and the GNS3.vmx. And then somewhere in here, usually I put it near where the CPU information is. But for example, somewhere in here, press, if you haven't used VI before, you press I to insert, and then you can start typing. And I'm going to say vhv.enable equals true. Then I'm hit escape and then colon and WQ to write and quit. And that's pretty much it. So I can exit out of here, and I can stop the service and hit OK and OK. Now I am just going to remove this from inventory for a moment so that we can then import it back in with those settings that we just made. So we're going to browse the data store, go to GNS3, right click on our VMX file and choose add to inventory, next, finish, and that's it. We can close that. Now if we look here, everything's still the same, good to go. Now we can go ahead and power, we'll open console and power this on, and we should no longer get that warning. It should say KVM is enabled. All right, so now you can see KVM's available, true. And then here is the IP address, it's .212, and you have your SSH GNS3 information. Images and projects are located under opt and GNS3. So I use WinSCP to modify this, because one of the things that we're going to have to do is upload the images that we're going to use. So from here we can actually go to the shell, and if you type in pwd, get a bearings on where your home directory is. This is actually, if you're using the IOU, this is where you're going to put your license file as well. So so if you do a Google search on the Cisco IOU keygen.py, it's a Python script that you can actually generate the key. It's pretty much based on your host name. So if you don't change the host name from GNS3, it probably will work. But if you want to change your host name for whatever reason and have your own custom key, that's what you use. I think there's a gray area in legality with that. So like I say, just Google it in that regard. Because yeah, I'm not 100%. I pay Cisco for a 30 node subscription every year. So, and it's essentially everything in VIRL with the IOU is essentially what it is. So maybe that's just me justifying, but you know. But at any rate, that's where you can get it. And what you can do is it'll generate the file for you. And let's see, I can't copy paste in here very well, or at all, I should say. So I am going to edit this file, or create a file, I should say, IOURC. Why is this IOURC? There we go. Oh, it has nano, so I guess I can do it there. Usually it's the other way around. It's good to know VI because pretty much any Unix-based system you get into will have VI and not nano, but in this case it's the other way around. There's nano but no VI. So let's see, we'll say license, and GNS3 VM, that's going to be your host name, and then let's see, 73635FD3B0A13AD0. Oh, my number lock was off. So now if we do lslah, there's our IOURC file, and then you want to make that executable. So alright, so now it's green. You can see read write for everybody. And then the images are under OPT GNS3 images. Well, it's supposed to be. So we can say make their images. All right, so then cd images, and then this is where we create the sub directories of iOS, IOU, and QEMU. All right, so we got our sub directories there. Now what I'm gonna do is use WinSCP to connect, and I'm gonna change this to SCP, and then SSH to the 10.10.10. Sorry guys, I am on call this week. I gotta grab this, so I'll be right back. All right, I'm back. So let's see, where was I? So we are, all right, so we are the 10.10.10.212. 212, and it's GNS3 by default. So hit login. Yes. Now we're in the home directory here, and where we want to go is to the OPT GNS3 images, and under iOS we will go to, if I go to my downloads, so I've got these two images here, so I'm going to copy these over, hit OK. Alright, then we're going to do the same for IOU. Grab these two images, copy these over. And it doesn't look like I downloaded the, let's see, let me check my network 1 second. Alright, so here's some we could use to test. These are actually from last year. I know I've got some newer ones somewhere, just gotta find them. But for this purpose, we'll just go ahead and upload this for now. And while that is uploading, let's go back to our downloads, and we will go to the GNS152 all-in-one installer so that we can install GNS3 on this machine. Now keep in mind we're going to be using this remotely. If you want to, you could install it locally, but I'm going to use this 100% remote. It's also how the Freelab BETA works. If you want to use WinPCAP for, that reminds me too, what we have to do is, well, let me finish my thought. What I was going to say is that to be in promiscuous mode, so normally when, you know, layer 2 packets or frames come in and the Mac is not destined for it, it will discard it. WinPCAP essentially allows that process to ignore that process, so you can see all the layer 2 frames that are broadcasted out in Wireshark, so you can, you know, see what's going on in the wire. So on this machine, I'm actually not going to do it because this is actually my gaming PC. But all I really need is the GNS3, and I'll use Super Putty for visual. Not going to install anything else, and just go ahead and install this. And again, you can install whatever you want. And we'll say no. I'm not going to start GNS3 just yet, because there's still a few things we have to do. So I'll uncheck that and hit finish. Alright, and now let's go back to our console here. And what we want to do is make these, the iOS, IOU, and QEMU images executable as well. So let's go cd iOS, and we could chmod 777 star.image. Now if we look, now these are all executable, and we just do the same for these. So bin, I guess you could just do star.star2, whatever whatever works for you. And all right, and then we'll just wait once this finishes. Well, I guess it's almost done. All right, so now that it's finished uploading, now we can do the same thing. And there we go. So now I think we are done with GNS3 from a baseline config, so we can exit out of here and close this. And we can disconnect from here and hit OK. All right, so now we have our GNS3 and VIRL running. So I am going to now load up GNS3. By default, it's going to try to use the local server, and we're not going to do that. And I'm going to choose this Don't Show Again and cancel the setup wizard. And I will cancel this as well for now. And now we're going to go to Preferences. And under server, I'm going to uncheck, I'm not going to use the local server, and I'm not going to use a GNS3 VM server, but I will use the remote server. And I should say, I'm just showing you this for demonstration purposes, but what you may want to do is change on the GNS3 VM appliance, change the IP to a static IP instead of being DHCP. But in this case, I am going to use 10.10.10.212 and not require authentication. Hit OK, apply, and we'll set up our iOS routers. So if we say new, we're going to say run on the remote computer, and you can see it now has the server we selected, and you'll see the two images that we uploaded. So we'll start with this one. This is the M11 series. So just say this is M11, and you can change the default amount of RAM and what interfaces that you want to have. So if you want to have some gig interfaces, for example, maybe some T1s. Well, probably not now, but for old time's sake. And then, of course, use the idle PC finder. This will launch spin up the image remotely and look for the idle PC value, and it should find one. All right, so here it found the image. We'll hit OK and finish. And then we will add new again, run on remote computer. And we'll choose, this is the S4 image. And same thing here, you can just choose what kind of interfaces you want. Idle PC finder. All right, now we have our value, hit OK and finish. And then for the IOU, say new, run the IOU on remote computer. And so we got the L2 image and the L3 image. So L2, we'll just call something like that, and finish. Pretty simple. And then we'll do the same thing for the layer 3 image, and call this iOS router 15609S. Oops, no. 155.2T. All right, so now we got those. Now for these, there's another step I need to do first. Normally on the version 1.4, you would do that, but now you have to import appliance. And we are using the Cisco IOSR here. This is my first time doing this, by the way. I just read about it last week. So router, status table, Okay, remote computer. GNS3 server requirements is okay. You can continue. Okay. So this is the one I have. Okay, see. So the following versions are available for IOS-XRv. Check the status of the files required to install. All right, so it wants a specific file. And let's see which one, the one we uploaded. All right, well, if you guys have a Cisco account, you can go to you go to the virl.mediascorp.com and click on the download VIRL link, and there should be see IOS-XR, and it was saying we can use IOS-XR 601 or 600. So here's 600. Oh, here's 601 right here. So we could actually download both, I guess, if we wanted to. So we can download this one and this one. All right, so we got the 600 and 601. So I'm gonna open up WinSCP again. And I guess if you plan on logging into it more often, you would want to save it. So 10, 10, 10, 212, GNS3, save. All right, log in. Then we are going to go to back to the op GNS3 images QEMU, and we can actually delete this one because we're not going to use that after all. Man, this downloading is slow. All right, so while this is downloading, let's switch gears for a moment and go over to Cisco VIRL. And let me close this and just create a new topology. So just give it a name .virl, and by default you can have a management network, and I could have a whole section just, I mean, there's a lot to VIRL and all the different things you can do. I guess what I'm going to do is set it up similar to how we're going to set up GNS3. So I'm going to say a shared flat network, but under extensions I'm going to change this to flat 1, and I'll tell you why in a minute, or when we get there. So essentially anything that I put in here is going to have a management of the shared flat network. I don't know why that keeps changing. Let me save flat 1, save. It's kind of weird. Yeah. Okay. So let's see. So what I'm going to do is let's put in an iOS router. Okay. So NX-OS. You can throw in an ASA, and then I'm going to throw in a flat network, and this should be just flat. Oops. All right, so on the back end, Okay. That's what we want to see. Where you're on the main plane here, say flat 1, and this guy here, flat. Again, I'm just showing one of many ways to do this. I'll have separate videos on VIRL if you guys want. This is just going to be a quick, just to show you how it works type thing. Now we can interconnect these. So I'm going to add the layer 2 switch in there, and we can just connect these up. Something like this. We can call this one VIRL R1. VIRL NX-OS and VIRL ASA. Reason I'm doing that is, and we can say VIRL switch. Reason I'm doing that is just so when we look at CDP neighbors and different things, we can distinguish the different environments. So not sure. See, ensure that. No, I'm not using the SNAT. I use L2 flat. So. Alright, so let's see. Alright, so now that our files are downloaded, let's go back here and upload these. And again, obviously I cannot give out these images. However, I do have the GNS3 Freelab available that I have these on. So if you want to use these remotely, you can connect. Just go to voiptech.info under just on the main page here. We get the collaboration and the GNS3 routing. Just use the GNS3 routing, and I have the information how to connect. And essentially, you're just going to use this here, the GNS3.freelab.local on port 3080, just like how I set up. But instead of it being on your local machine, it's going to be using my server. So you still can get hands-on with this, even though I can't give you the image. All right, so while that's uploading, let me just start this. Let's see if it barks at me. It may not behave as expected. All right. Oh, well, it's interesting. I think I've done that before. I want this one, the IOS L2, not IOL L2. That's probably why it was barking at me, because I was going to say, shouldn't be any errors. So let's see, make sure the flat one, and this is value of flat. Okay. Let's start this up. It has validation warnings. Well, I'm going to launch it anyway for now. This is a newer version. And do we want to switch to, we'll say yes. And our upload just finished. So now actually we got to go and make those executable again. So looks good. So let's go back and try again. All right, ready to install, ready to install. We'll hit next. Yes. Okay. So there's that one. I thought I was going to install both. Like I said, I've never tried this before, and I could look at the instructions too. That could always help. But let's go ahead and build a topology here. So I'm going to add a couple of the IOS-XRs. And I'll put in some of the IOUs. Put one of each. So we'll call this one R2-IOU, just to distinguish it. And then for our switches, we can put in let's put in a couple switches here. And here, we're going to put in our cloud, and we're going to run this on the remote server. And if we configure this, we are going to want to add the ETH1. ETH1 is going to be that flat, and ETH2 is going to be the flat one. So in theory, we could add both of them if we wanted to. But in this case, I'm just going to have this connect to the flat network on ETH1, and we'll put it on ETH00 on the L2 switch. Then we can just connect the L2 switch to different interfaces here. Actually, let's do it like this. So we'll just get these connected. And put on the management. And all right. Maybe I should change this one. We'll add another connection there. All right. Another one for management. All right. So from a proof of concept standpoint, I think this should be good. We'll just call this YouTube test. And let's go ahead and power this one up too. All right, now up until this point, everything you've seen was recorded last night. However, I came across a GNS3 bug in the process of making this video, and while I was editing and the 30 minutes of troubleshooting that ended up just being a GNS3 bug, it kind of took away from the flow of people that are trying to follow along or what have you. So I'm just going to continue from here, insert this new video to pick up where this one left off, and then the troubleshooting stuff I'll add at the very end as an option for those of you that are interested in that piece. So at any rate, we have this now powered up, and one thing that was in the previous video that is probably cut out right now was earlier in the video I forgot to go back to it, but one of the configuration changes that I did was on the flat networks. If we go to edit here and security, we want it to, the default is reject for promiscuous mode, and so we want to check this box and choose accept to override the default. And this will allow the MAC addresses that aren't destined for the actual ESXi server to pass through. So I just did that for both flat and flat 1, even though in this video we're not really using flat 1. Well, actually, no, I didn't. See, this is the default. We're not using flat 1 in this video, but this is all I did was change it from reject to accept and OK. All right, so now that we have that, let's go ahead and double click on log in through the console to our IOU 2. And if we want, we can say host name, we'll say switch switch 2. And if you look at, we'll just look at one of these interfaces here. You can see by default, all of the interfaces are set up as routed interfaces. So like I said, what we want to do is change these all to switch ports. So you can see what we'll do is say go to config T, say int range eth0 0 to 3, eth1 0 to 3, eth2 0 to 3, and eth3 0 to 3. And for these we'll say switch port to make them all switch ports, and we'll say spanning tree port fast, show int status, and we'll do the same for switch 1 here. So let's log in here, and actually if I config T, hit the up arrow, and just copy this, paste that in there, say switch port and spanning tree port fast. Now you can see a trunk is formed here, and by default it's an ISL, so show int trunk. So you can see there's an ISL trunk created. We can leave it that way for now. You can change it to 802.1q if you want, but for this example, let's make all the GNS3 devices. So we have this was our physical hardware emulation. So it's using the actual software for the hardware. So it sees it as a 7200 router or 7206 VXR router. So on this one, let's give these for the 4th octet, we'll give them starting with like in the 10s, and then VIRL 20s, and then we can add the CSRs at the end, and we'll use those in the 30s to make them all interconnect. So again, if we look at our interface here, fast Ethernet 00 is going to the switch. So let's give this IP address of 172.16.0.11. No shut, and we'll set a default route to. I don't remember if I showed this or not, but on my home router, if we log in, show run int vlan 200, which was our flat VLAN. So this one here, I have it set up as 172.16.0.1. So we can set a default route here as well. So and also actually on the switches, let's turn on VLAN 1, give them IPs as well. So say in VLAN 1. And we'll do the same here. All right, and on these, let's also set the default gateway to 172.16.0.1, and we'll do it here too. All right. So back to router 1 here. Let's see. All right, so now we can actually ping the default gateway, which would mean that then if I pull up, we can actually get out of here, clear this. Let's set up telnet here. So we go config T, line VTY04, and we'll say the privilege level for these are 15, no login, transport input telnet. And so now if we telnet to 172.16.0.11, now we're in router 1, and you can see this is the 7200. So we're going from my PC through my real switch and into this server through GNS3. Likewise with the IOS-XRv, we can go ahead and configure that. These are a little bit different in that, for one, it has a default username of Cisco and Cisco when you first log in. So we'll go config T, and this time we're going to say telnet IPv4 server and say max servers 5. And then we need to, since I'm on a different subnet, just like we did on the iOS router, we need to give it a default gateway. So we'll say router static and address family IPv4 unicast, and we'll set our default route to 172.16.0.1 and get back to the main config and commit that. And then on our well, and actually I should have configured the interface. So we can use management or gig 00. I'm going to use the management interface here. So int management 0, and then we'll give it IP address 172.16.0. See, we use 2, 3. So how about 4? And end, or commit, and now if we go, we can exit out of here. Now let's see if we can get to, I should have given it like 12. I was thinking the switches, but you get the idea. So I'll just put in 4 here. Looks like it's timing out. Yeah, because we got to turn up the interface. Yeah. All right. No, now let's try that again. Hit the up arrow. All right, and then Cisco. All right, so now we're in there. So all good there. So you kind of get the idea. So it's basically coming in through this cloud interface, going up through the layer 2 switches or multi-layer switches, but just using L2. And yeah, so you can basically configure these however you want. And usually you would configure it within this environment, but the whole purpose of this video is just to show how you can take these different environments and integrate them with real either a network lab or just your home network for management, whatever you want to do. As a matter of fact, we could even integrate it. I use OSPF on my internal network, and we could even add OSPF if we wanted to. But actually, I'm going to go to some of the VIRL stuff first, but that's kind of the idea. And those of you that are doing CCNA, one of the nice things with this, whether you're using VIRL or GNS3, if you're using these multi-layer switches, for example, like if I bring these up, you can practice layer 2 stuff. One thing that I had just mentioned was that setup was the trunk that negotiated was ISL. But what you can also do is, like, if you look at the VTP status and show VLAN, there's just one here. But for example, I could do this. We could say VLAN 20 name VLAN 30, something like that. So then you can see show VLAN. You've got VLAN 2030. These are, do show VTP status. You can see these are still independent. Still has that, but if we say like VTP version 2 and VTP domain, call it WMX99 for example. Now if you look over here, show VTP status, it learned VTP, and show VLAN. Now you've got the VLAN 20 and 30 over here. So it's just kind of handy because you can do a lot of layer 2 stuff. Spanning tree was a big one, which will be at the end for troubleshooting. I was using spanning tree for a lot of the troubleshooting when there was a problem with that GNS3 bug. And testing layer 2, this is one of the things I was doing as well. So just so you know that is there. So now let's go over to our VIRL. And likewise here, let's see. Let's go to our, the setup on these are a little different. These ones you have to click over, like in GNS3 you double click to console. This one you have to find them over here and right click on them to telnet to the console port. And you can set these up to actually use your external, whether it's PuTTY or Secure CRT. Let's see here. And this one is, if we look by default, the layer 2 switch is set up as a switch port automatically. So we don't have to make any changes there. Let's go and configure router 1 here. Oops, see, I just told you that and I'm still double clicking on it. So we'll right click over here, telnet to its console port. We'll say no, we don't want to enter the initial configuration dialog. Alright, and once we're in, we can see our interfaces. This is GE01, so go to G01, give it an IP address of 172.16.0.21. Shut, and then we will also give it static route. If you don't have logging synchronous enabled, you can just press Control L and that'll refresh the page. Logging synchronous essentially does that automatically for you, but haven't set that up yet. So Control L kind of makes it cleaner when you get status messages as you're typing. So 172.16.0.1. Let's see. And let's see, ping 172.16.0.1. We can do that. So then we'll do the same thing here. Line V2I 04 and privilege level 15, no login, and transport input telnet. I just do that in lab environments just because it's convenient to be able to log in without having to be prompted. So So here, now you can see we're in the IOS-V from VIRL from my regular home network. Likewise, from here, we could even do telnet 172.16.0.11, if I can type. And see, now we're in the GNS3. So I'm on my home PC, going through my real switch to one server with GNS3, or I should say VIRL, then out from that virtual instance within VIRL, back through my switch to the other server that's running GNS3, and back to me. So kind of cool. Exit out of there. And again, likewise, we can do the same thing for NX-OS. Now, NX-OS does not support multiple VDCs or layer 2 or VEX stuff, but for layer 3, it's good to get practice. And admin is the default, I believe. See, admin, yep. And then on this one, let's see, we are on, shows here, looks like ETH21, so ETH21, give it IP address, we'll say 172.16.0.22, and no shut, give it IP route. I think you can do slash notation on here. And then we need to say feature telnet. So let's see, now bring up my home device again. This was on 21, or was it? 22. And Cisco, or admin. I already messed it up. admin. All right, so now you can see we're on the NX-OS, and good to go. And likewise, we can do the ASA. So I think this is kind of the main concept that I want to show you. How to have this all integrated, all meshed. Initially, like I say, I was going to do this just on, have all this on one server, and the end result is the same. Because I was having server issues, I have GNS3 on one server and VIRL on another. But as you can see, it still works and integrates all in one, even with the real hardware set up this way. So the last thing we'll do is the other mix to the puzzle is for the CSR1000Vs that run as standalone instances in ESXi. So again, we can deploy a OVF file, and I'm going to choose the CSR1000V, and I'm actually going to show you two things. One, we'll call this one CSR01, and this is going to be on the server that VIRL is on. And for the network interface, I'm going to choose flat here. So it's going to deploy here. Now I'm going to do something a little bit different on this one. On our network configuration here, I'm actually going to add a new one, and I'm going to call this trunk. Save that there, and we're also going to deploy the OVF here as well. And this time I'm going to choose trunk here. Okay, so then I'm going to open the console here and power it up. And these will take a minute to boot, so I will pause while these install. Alright, so one of them's already here. So I'm just going to say no for the initial configuration dialog. All right, and you can see here on this one that there's this crash and it reboots. This always happens the first time I install it. When I set the INE CCIE version 5 lab, all with the CSR1000Vs, every install, after you get the dialog, it crashes, reboots, and then it's fine. So this is a FYI. All right, so here we are after the second boot after the crash. So we'll try this again and say no. And at this point, we should be able to start doing our configuration. So if we look at our interfaces, we have gig 1, 2, and 0. So 0, 1, and 2, essentially. And if we go to edit settings, we can see these are all set up for the flat network. So if we were to go to config T, and we'll just say G0, IP address 172.16.0, what do we say, 30s, so 31, and give it a static route. Oops, gotta turn on number lock here. So I'll hit my Control L, and again, and striking out. All right, so by default, looks like these have a VRF. And it's on Ethernet 0. So let's just do no VRF forwarding MGMT INTF. So we'll just kill the VRF altogether. No. From the top level, no VRF definition, MGMT INTF. Why? I could have sworn I've removed that before. It's been a while. So let's just do this. Config T. I'm already in config T, so int G0, no IP address, and int G1, and IP address 172.16.0.31. No shut. There we go. All right, so CSR, something like that. So now, again, I can bring up my regular desktop, telnet to 172.16.0.31. Now we go. Now we have our IOS-XE. And if we go to our second one, now remember I set this up as a trunk, right? So, question, if we go to G1, and put in IP address 172.16.02. No shut. And so you can already tell there's different behavior, right? So already talking about name server. Where's it getting that from? It's because of these broadcasts. And see the 10.10.10? So this is kind of it's already cheating a little bit. I was going to ask you if this would work as is. I think you probably have an idea that it won't. So here we have our interface, and if we try to ping 172.16.0.1, it's going to fail. Why? Because we have our virtual switch, right? And the default native VLAN is 1. With this one, by specifying the flat network, we are telling the virtual switch in the configuration here, if you're part of flat 1, I'm going to tag it with VLAN 200. But when we set a trunk, that's all the ports. So what we would have to do in this case is, you can see if we go edit here, we can see that these are all the interfaces are set up as trunk. So what we would do is go to int g1 no IP address and say int g1.200. Well, the number, this number is arbitrary, but usually best practice is to make your sub interface number the same as the VLAN. So encapsulation.1q200 and then give it an IP address 172.16.0.32. Shut. And so now, as you can see, we can ping. And let's see, host name, we'll say CSR1000v, and this one doesn't take slash notation, so no big deal. And so again, go back here, we'll exit out of here, and now go into our 32. So yeah, so let's see if this works. Just like that. All right, so there you go. Now, one last final thing for the GNS, let me close these out. One last thing for those of you using GNS3 but don't have the images or whatever the case may be. If you want to use something like this with the Freelab, I'm going to stop these. So, like I say, I'm going to try to keep this online as much as possible, but again, I got to kind of watch the power bill. But for the time being, I'll post on here if it's not going to be online. But essentially, all you have to do is take this here, connect to the VPN, the split tunnel VPN, and then all you're going to do is the same steps that we did before, except for server, on remote servers, because this remote server is technically, if you have your own ESXi and it's still in the same physical location. The way that I have the Freelab BETA is once you're on the VPN, it's as if you're on the same network. Oops, I accidentally copied that. So, but basically just put in GNS3.freelab.local and keep everything the same. Hit OK. And OK. Now, actually, the only thing then too is you need to add the devices again. So even though we've added like these routers here, these are for your own ESXi if you're following along. For the Freelab, you're just going to do the same process, say new. Oh, and actually I need to connect to, because I'm on my DSL modem, cable modem, and I need to connect into the DSL modem. So I'm just going to use AnyConnect to connect. Say connect anyway, and I keep the username posted on here. I change it every once in a while. But so free user, paste in the password, connect anyway. Now I'm going to say run on the remote computer, and I'm going to choose the GNS freelab.local. And you can see you still have the same images. So I can select, I can choose this one and name it, say M Freelab. And just like we did before, set the interfaces, the defaults you want. You can always modify these later, of course. And you use the same idle PC. Right, okay, finish, next, and likewise do that for the rest. All right, so, and then same with the IOU. And we could just say L2 switch Freelab. Pretty simple, and within the next day or two, I will add those other images. I have to edit this and then go to bed. I won't be on call next week, so I'll have more time to tinker. But you'll do the same thing. You'll download those. Oops, not that. You'll do the import appliance that you downloaded. Use the IOS-XRv, and you'll choose the GNS3. And oh, I guess I already have them on there. I didn't realize I had uploaded those. So yeah, so you're actually ready to go. So we can give this one Freelab. All right, so now when you go look at your routers, so now if you build a new topology or what have you, these are going to be your ESXi, and then the ones I labeled Freelab are ones that you're going to use if you're on the VPN, for example. And if you have the INE Workbook and are a subscriber to them, I did put one of the full-scale labs that you can download. I actually already downloaded this yesterday on the video I had to edit out. But you can just download that, and when you load this, you can see it has everything in there for you. And as long as you have that GNS3, you should just be able to hit play, and it'll start all the nodes, as you can see here. And when you double click on these will boot into the baseline configs with the DMVPN, and you can, go to town with your configs. So I believe that's all for this video. Again, I will add to the end some of the troubleshooting from yesterday when there was the GNS3 bug. And yeah, so I hope this has helped you with getting your lab set up. And if you have any questions, let me know. But as always, thanks for watching, and I will see you guys in the next video. So on the real switch, seeing that MAC address, let me see. Is it? What I forgot to do was go over here to see network settings, these, and I'm actually going to do it on the main network configuration here. Over to networking properties, flat, edit, and under security here, promiscuous mode, we want to accept. So let's see. Yep, see, now I can ping. Okay. Flat network. And then back in through here to this device. Like I say, there's something going on here. I'm not sure offhand what it is, but basically you get the idea. So what I end up doing is on another machine is I just set up another topology and used Wireshark between the links because I was able to reproduce this issue with a different topology. So I could see that ARP messages were not getting a reply. However, layer 2 messaging seemed to be working just fine. So VTP and DTP and CDP was working between the uplinks, but not layer 3. So here I was just testing some of the creating the VLANs and looking at the VLAN messaging, or VTP messaging I should say. And eventually, when I was playing around with the spanning tree settings, enabling, disabling BPDU filters and whatnot, even though it was negotiated as trunk ports, it started getting these BPDU inconsistent errors and shutting down the port. So I eventually just went ahead and did a soft reboot of GNS3 and all issues cleared up.